So the Chiefs have been busy making moves extending key pieces along the roster, and it looks like they are not done yet, at least not if they can help it per sources inside the building. That's why there's another key piece they hope to make here sooner rather than later, and in today's video I'll break that entire situation down, look at why the Karlaftis extension is even better than initially believed, a roster move made today, Andy Reid talking about Rice, key injuries, and more. So let's talk about it all as the Chiefs prepare for training camp tomorrow, but first, how about those? Alright, so training camp officially starts tomorrow for the Chiefs, which means we made it out of the drought, the offseason drought, and the NFL season is closer than ever. First up, Andy Reid spoke with the media yesterday, and there were several noteworthy takeaways from what he shared. Of course, his training camps will always be very tough. The guys know that. They have to come in with the right mindset, and players that have gone through it before make sure to pass the word down to the young guys, essentially telling them it's going to be hell. Andy firmly believes that helps the team in the long haul, and considering all the success they've had over the years, it's really hard to argue that. Something that happened right before Andy Reid stepped up to the podium, though, was the announcement that the Chiefs got a long-term extension done with defensive end George Karlaftis. Regarding that deal, Andy said, quote, "That's a great thing. He's a heck of a player. He's done a great job and is profiting from that. It's a win-win situation, though, because the team is also profiting from having George around. He's got that relentless motor, is reliable, and you can trust that he's going to be where he's supposed to be." So they extended Nick Bolton near the start of free agency, tagged and then very recently extended right guard Trey Smith, and now got a long-term deal done with George Karlaftis. What's crazy about the Karlaftis extension is that everything seemed to happen pretty quickly. I shared just last week that a long-term deal could get done with George at some point during training camp because Ricky tweeted out about it. Ricky is the dog profile photo guy on Twitter with legitimate sources and broke the Trey Smith news to a T from the year to approximate APY well before it actually happened. Well, on July 16th, Ricky shared that the Chiefs were closing in on a new deal with George, and we should expect it to be done during camp, and quote, "There is serious momentum towards getting an extension done." Things ended up getting so serious that they were actually able to get this deal done before the start of training camp, with George signing on the dotted line this morning, and honestly, I think this is a win here for both sides. Signing a player early like this is only going to help down the road, and I'll break down why this contract is pretty team-friendly and will only look better in the next couple of years. Before I do, though, it's worth noting on the subject of the defensive line that the Chiefs signed defensive tackle Omarr Norman Lott to his rookie contract over the weekend. It wasn't a fully guaranteed contract like some of these other second-round picks were getting, but I'm sure his guarantees are pretty decent. I don't have all the specifics of his contract right now, but him signing is great news because he legally could not practice at training camp if he didn't sign on the dotted line. Well, that now means that every draft pick from the Chiefs draft class has signed their rookie deals and are good to go for camp. Next up, I've got to talk about how details revealed the contract of Karlaftis' extension to be even better than expected, some injury concerns already for a couple key players, and then the Chiefs have their eyes on the next player they want to extend. But first, many of you probably don't know this, but I intentionally lost nearly 50 pounds during the pandemic back in 2020 as a goal to get healthier, mainly for my family. Basically, I got lazy on my diet over the years, and health issues limited my ability to exercise like I used to when I was younger. So the main way I accomplished that was through clean eating, mainly high protein and low carb. Well, one of my favorite things about today's sponsor, David Protein, is that not only are they absolutely delicious, but they have the highest protein to calorie ratio on the market, 28 grams of protein and only 150 calories per bar. That's fantastic and great for me and my lifestyle. There's so many flavors to choose from, but I opted for chocolate chip cookie dough as well as peanut butter chocolate chunk, and so good. The soft cookie dough combined with the crunchy crisps make these absolutely delicious. They also don't have that weird aftertaste that some protein bars have, and it helps that David has received public support from leading dietitians, doctors, and athletes. One sec. On top of that, they are rooted in solid evidence-based nutrition and backed by research on muscle gain, fat loss, and performance. I will also add, these are not just for gym goers either. This is for the average office worker, parents on the go, gym enthusiasts, and really anybody looking to supplement their diet with a healthy protein additive. So get some David Protein bars for yourself before they sell out by clicking the link below or find them at davidprotein.com. You can also scan the QR code up on the screen. All right, initial reports yesterday were that the extension for George Karlaftis was a 4-year extension, $93 million total, and included $62 million in guarantees, 32 of that, by the way, was guaranteed at signing, and again, he signed that this morning. So congrats on a wealthy payday to George Karlaftis. But with those numbers in mind, the average per year on his 4-year extension is $23.25 million, which currently has him as the 10th highest paid pass rusher in the league. However, Albert Breer noted that it's even a bit better than that. He shared it's actually a 4-year $88 million extension with a max value of $93 million in new money. So it's $22 million per year with some escalators, and it gets even better when you think about it over the lifespan of his contract. So yes, there's the 4-year extension he just signed, but he's still got the last year of his rookie deal to play on this year, plus his 5th-year option in 2026. That's essentially a 6-year deal with an average of $17.5 million per year. So combine that with the fact that more pass rushers need to get paid this offseason and then the next couple of off seasons as well, and this is going to slide George down the pay scale to probably the 20th, that's being conservative, highest paid edge rusher in the league. If you look at the cap hit breakdowns by year provided by Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, it's $5.1 million in 2025, $15.5 million in 2026. He skipped 2027 altogether for whatever reason, but according to Arrowhead Live, if you do the math, it should be $14.75 million in 2027. Then for 2028, 29, and 30, it's $23 million, $25 million, and $22 million. So backloaded with that last year probably not being guaranteed. And that means his cap hits don't really change from what they were slated to be initially in 2025 and 2026 prior to him signing that extension. And here's why, to me, this is a great move by the Chiefs. First, there's no real proven longevity in the defensive end room for them after this season. Charles Omenihu's on a 1-year deal. You can move on from Mike Dana's contract after this year for only $2 million in dead money. Then Felix Anudike-Uzomah is still to be determined as he enters year 3, and Ashton Gillotte, KC's latest draft pick in the defensive end room, hasn't yet played a single snap in the NFL. So this definitely gives you some long-term security in that room. There are some who don't like the fact that the Chiefs extended George, saying they could have found better in free agency when the time came, and then others think the Chiefs should have waited and focused on Trent McDuffie first and foremost. The problem with that is McDuffie is going to get top of market money. The Chiefs reportedly want to try and get something done with him. More on that in a bit, but I first want to talk about the first part of that. Teams don't just let good pass rushers walk into free agency unsigned unless they're coming off of injury or aging. George's neither fits the system well, and when you break down his stats, I feel like he got paid fair to his production levels, although over time it's going to benefit the Chiefs even more. Since the 2022 NFL season, George's rookie year, here's where he stacks up among all edge rushers in the league. He's 6th in pressures, 15th in sacks, 11th in quarterback hits, and 2nd in batted down passes with 13. That's a very underrated aspect of George's game, batting down passes with that water polo background, and I didn't even factor in Furious George's playoff stats into this. He has 8 sacks and 21 more pressures in the postseason as well. So yeah, this is a great move by the Chiefs to get a deal done with George now rather than wait. Plus, GK's durable, has been very healthy so far in his career, is still just 24 years old and quite possibly yet to even hit his prime. Now, of course, some of this production from George is helped by the fact that Chris Jones is on the interior of the D-line. He's the best defensive tackle in the league and draws quite possibly more double teams than anybody else. So George has benefited from that, but regardless, I still think this is a fair contract based on his production, and hopefully most of you are like me, happy to have GK around for many years to come. Somebody I hope is around for many years to come as well is going to be cornerback Trent McDuffie. Well, Nate Taylor of ESPN shared details on the Karlaftis deal in an article, then said, quote, "The Chiefs hope they can accomplish the last part of what would be a trifecta of deals, Trey Smith, George Karlaftis, and then McDuffie, before the season starts by signing McDuffie," adding that this is likely to be a record-setting contract similar to Trey Smith's. There's a lot of back and forth debate about the Chiefs' history of not signing defensive backs they draft as second contracts, but the reality is McDuffie is a first-team All-Pro slot corner and still top 5 on the outside. That is very rare versatility and probably worth every single penny if they can make it happen. Of course, Trent and his representation may want to wait as long as possible because the longer they do, the more money they could potentially make. Nate is very well connected with the Chiefs organization though, so it does seem like they are at least going to try to get something done, which is a positive in my eyes. If that doesn't work out before the start of the season, they can just try again next offseason. Regardless, Trent is under contract through 2026. And then if they have to, KC can franchise tag him for the 2027 season. The cost to franchise tag a corner this offseason was $20.1 million. It'll be a little bit higher in a couple years, but all in all, this would be a much cheaper route to go, albeit less longevity, for one of the best players the Chiefs have drafted in the secondary in a very long time. But hey, what do you guys think ends up happening with Trent McDuffie? Do you hope it's a long-term deal, or would you prefer the route of letting him play out 2025, 2026 on his fifth-year option, and then franchise tagging him for the 2027 NFL season? Next up, Andy Reid weighed in a bit on Rashee Rice and some injuries worth noting. Regarding Rice, Andy said there's obvious news out there about his situation, but they're going to progress as normal with him. As long as his knee handles the workload, which it should because he's been fully cleared for camp, they are going to give him the reps they normally would during practices. With that being said, though, if a suspension comes, it helps they rotate receivers all around during camp, so, quote, whoever needs to play will step in, know what they are doing, and be in shape to do it. As far as a timeline for Rice's suspension, Big Red hasn't heard anything from the league and has no idea how long it'll be or when the suspension will take place at this point in time. I think it's most likely a 4 to 6 game suspension, and he will start the season suspended. At least that's how things seem to be looking right now. Big Red then shared 3 players will be starting training camp on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list: cornerback Christian Fulton, right tackle Jawan Taylor, and tight end Trey Watson. Everybody else is good to go, which is good news. But regarding the 2 big names on the PUP list there, Christian Fulton and Jawan Taylor, he's hoping to have them back out there as soon as possible, but Jawan Taylor is probably closer to seeing action at practice than Fulton. Both of these guys are dealing with knee issues, and that's something Jawan battled through off and on all last year, or for most of last year, but in a pretty under-the-radar offseason move, Brett Veach revealed that Jawan had a procedure done to his knee. He shared this sometime right around the draft, and he's been rehabbing through it. So with Jawan's timeline to return seeming to be sooner than Christian Fulton's, I think that procedure went well, and he should be better for it this season. Then Christian Fulton got signed this offseason and was coming off one of the healthiest seasons of his NFL career, but he does have a bit of an injury history, so there is some minor concern there with Fulton, to me at least. But with that being said, any player that starts training camp out on the PUP list can return at any point during camp or preseason, so it doesn't seem to be anything too terribly serious for either Jawan Taylor or Christian Fulton. With Taylor out right now, Andy made it seem like Josh Simmons and Jalen Moore will be splitting the work at the left tackle spot. They obviously didn't have consistency there last season, and this year, they have some good candidates. They just need to see how things go as camp goes on, and Andy Heck is rotating guys all around as it is. So as long as Jawan is out, your guess is as good as mine on who gets the nod for left tackle and who plays on the right side with the first team offense. We should find out something tomorrow, but I'd imagine Simmons and Moore split in some capacity on that left side, and then on the right, maybe Simmons as well as Wanye Morris. It's tough to know for sure right now. I'm just glad that Jalen Moore is good to go for camp, because there was a period of time during OTAs, maybe even mandatory minicamp, that Jawan Taylor and Jalen Moore were not fully practicing. The team seems high on Josh Simmons, though, as he's ahead of his rehab schedule and cleared to be a full go for camp, with Andy noting that he stayed in KC the entire break between mandatory minicamp and now. He's been working his tail off, and he looks completely ready to go. His conditioning is there, and he's been working hard, but of course they will keep an eye on him and that knee during training camp. After all, this is a different level, and the pads will eventually come on, whereas at OTAs, they are still padless practices with contact not really allowed. Coach Reid said the goal is to come out of camp with a very good idea of who their left tackle is going to end up being, and they will be evaluating and grading these guys every single play. So we've got to watch out for the tackle spots for sure, and also see if Kingsley Suamataia is indeed given the nod at the left guard spot over Mike Caliendo. I think he will, because the coaching staff seem pretty high on him at the guard spot, and he can use every rep he can get. But then, with Christian Fulton out, let's see who the next man up is after Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson in the cornerback room. Is it the 3rd round pick in Noel Williams? Will he be ready yet, or still going through growing pains that leaves him lower on the pecking order? There's going to be a ton to watch out for during training camp, and I'll definitely keep you updated every step of the way, including roster moves that the Chiefs make. They did make one today worth mentioning when they signed wide receiver Hal Presley. He was an undrafted free agent out of Baylor, previously signed by the Bills after the draft last year, and KC had tryouts per Nick Jacobs and a couple others, Amari Rodgers, Seth Williams, but this guy made the cut. And if you're like, Cole, why on earth are they trying out receivers? Well, Justin Ross was asked to be let go, and they waived him last week, so you've got to get camp bodies in there. And Hal is a guy that's gotten better every single year. If you look at his stats at college, coming off of his senior year at Baylor in 2024, where he caught 31 passes for 429 yards and 3 touchdowns. But again, this is going to be extremely difficult to crack the 53-man roster or anything like that. And he's just getting here late, right as training camp is starting tomorrow. He's 6'2", 210 pounds, ran a 4.56 40. That's unofficial. His RAS overall out of Baylor coming out for the draft was 6.10. And again, that is an unofficial relative athletic score. But there you go. This is a camp body that you need when Justin Ross is gone. You got to have guys to kind of step up and fill his role. I don't know in what capacity Hal Presley is going to get worked in, but this is not the first or last roster move the Chiefs are going to make. They also did officially place the 3 players I mentioned earlier on in this video on the PUP list in tight end Trey Watson, offensive tackle Jawan Taylor, and cornerback Christian Fulton. Injuries happen all throughout camp, so roster moves like this are going to be kind of common because you need so many players running around and helping out during these camp practices. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments down below, and until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?